Now we're going to move on to the next section of this presentation, which is querying XML data using XQuery. Remember, before we were using, or we had these two words, or we have the DB2 support both, and we have covered this part SQL with XML, but now we are going to cover XQuery. In XQuery, everything has to be prefixed with the keyword XQuery. As I said before, if you don't put this keyword, that means that I am issuing SQL. That's why I need to put this XQuery keyword so that I'm really issuing XQuery. This particular function is just to retrieve all the content of this XML column. So this actually will be equivalent to issuing a select contact from clients if I am just using SQL select contact from clients. But this will be, if I use the XQuery, this will be XQuery invoke this function, and then I put the name of the table, that the name of the column that has to be. So let me just quickly execute this. I did not execute the previous one just to save some time. Here I have the XQuery. Again, I'm going to clear the results, and from here I am going to execute the XQuery, and as you can see, I get all the XML documents back. Since we are here, let's see what will happen here if I choose contact in lowercase and I execute, and then I get an error message, because again, I mentioned this, it has to be in uppercase when you are working with XML in DB2. Moving on to the next section, we have the floor expression. We are using XQuery and we are using the floor expression. We have clients contact and we want to get tax. So an example of that will be this output similar, but now we are doing some restricting or filtering using zip. This one we can maybe execute it very quickly. You can execute all of them. I don't want to make it too long, so I'm skipping some of these examples. So if I execute this, I will get the zip code all the way where the zip code is 95116. So that's the only one record I get, only one record, because of the restriction that I put here. This is another example. In this case, you are also combining the HTML UL. For example, UL, you are combining HTML with XML. A very quick explanation of this. Let's see here, Control C, here clear results, here Control V, execute, and then here I have, you see now it has UL embedded within or combined with the XML. So potentially you can return this to a web browser, and then it would be nicely displayed. For the example, this is basically what I just showed you. Sample HTML. You can also use another function called DB2 function SQL query, and that allows me to embed SQL as shown in right inside XQuery. So before, what I was showing using SQL with XML was that you would start with select, and in there I would use XML exist, XML query, etc. Now what I'm using is XQuery at the top level, and inside there I'm using SQL in red. So this would be doing the following. This will be selecting comments from items where SRP 100, and from there it will maybe select, let's say we have 100 rows. Now it may select 110 rows, and from there, by the way, this column has to be an XML column, the one I'm using in select, and from here I go comments, so I'm going down, navigating the elements. Of course, these names may not be very good for illustration purposes, but these are different elements. Then from there I continue with the XQuery. So let me quickly execute that XQuery here, and I'm going to select this, the command editor, clear the results, Control V, I execute, and this is the output. I get for running that particular query. I get the product ID, customers, and message. So that's what I get: product ID, customer, and message. And that's all within the action tag. So moving on, you can also do joins with SQL XML. So in this example, you have two tables: a department table and a unit table. The department table has an XML column. One that table does not have any XML column. So in this example, we are going to join an of the document XML document with a relational column, which in this case is going to be manager column. And there are different ways to do it. The first way, for example, would be using the syntax select, etc., where XML exists. So employee name, so here is where the join is happening. Employee name, that means that we want the name element of this document to be joined to M, where M is defined here. This one here, manager, this column, that's what I am joining. I am joining the name element of the XML document with the relational column called manager. The same thing on select. Below I'm doing it's the same idea, but look here, manager column is on the left side while the XML element is on the right side, and then I have to change the syntax. I have to do a casting. I have to use XML query to get the name. Well, you know, this is the old syntax. I have to pass the doc as a. I could have put just name from here, sorry, the name of the dev doc employee name, and then I'm doing the casting because you know, in DB2, whenever you do a equals, or whenever you are doing a comparison, the data type, two sides should be compatible. Since the data manager is varchar, so it is compatible with car or varchar. The difference between the two, it should be the same output, but in the first case probably you are doing to be using an XML index, while in the second case, because the relational column is on the left side, you are probably going to be using the relational index. Now you can try and test which method or syntax is better in terms of performance, using the XML index or the relational index. Moving on, you can also do a join, where you can join. In this case, you have two XML documents. One, this is in a depth table, and the other is in the project table. There you have another XML document, so you have two XML documents. What you are going to do, you join two elements from those two different XML documents, or maybe an attribute and element. In this case, there are two syntaxes. The easier syntaxes to understand, one that uses XQuery, and with XQuery you just do two floor expression. Basically, one is the depth and the other one is right, and in there you are storing. Then you do the equation here. You say where, or the join here, depth id equals depth id, so I'm joining an attribute with an element.